knows a lot about the science stuff. Professor Dave explains.
In the previous tutorial, we listed the different principles of forensic science and their relevance in investigating a crime scene. Proper processing of the scene is important, as it serves as the foundation for subsequent analysis of evidence in the laboratory. This analysis would be misleading if the proper protocol for CSI is not followed. CSI is a simple and methodical process, but it doesn't have to be the same for each crime scene. It is essential to remember that the only thing that is consistent about crime scenes is their inconsistencies. All crime scenes are unique, hence CSI differs from scene to scene. Remember the law of individuality. The only requirement is that it should take into account all the principles we mentioned earlier. A crime scene, or CS, can be classified into primary CS and secondary CS. This classification does not reflect priority or importance, but rather the sequence of events. Let us consider this example. A child is kidnapped from a school and then murdered by the riverside. Here, the school is the primary CS and the riverside is the secondary CS. Other classifications will be based on location, indoor and outdoor, type of crime committed, and the size of the CS. Even with these classifications, it is not possible to adopt a single method to investigate a CS. The investigators constantly adapt depending on two essential factors, logic and feasibility. Logic refers to determining how the event would have taken place at the CS, and feasibility refers to determining the extent to which the particular adopted method could produce results. Crime investigation is broadly divided into two important stages, CSI and laboratory investigation. CSI involves steps such as protection of the CS, followed by recognition, searching, collection, packaging, and transportation of the evidence to the laboratory. After applying suitable scientific techniques for analyzing the evidence, their results are interpreted and presented in the courtroom in the form of expert testimony. All of these stages are important in investigation, and the efficacy of each stage will depend on the steps taken in the previous ones. Let us look at each one of them in detail. The first stage in CSI is the protection of the CS. The main goal is to uphold Locard's law of exchange, meaning to secure physical evidence that could establish the forensic linkage triangle between crime scene, victims, and suspects. It is not necessary for the first responding officers at the CS to be police officers. They can be medical emergency personnel and fire department personnel as well. FROs are the only personnel who view the CS in its original condition. But before thinking further about the CS, their primary job is to attend to the safety of the people involved at the scene. Once the safety of everyone involved is guaranteed, the FROs notify the nearest police station about the crime. The FROs try to keep as much of an open and objective mind as possible and try to understand the CS according to their own experience. The first step is to assist the victim. If the victim is dead, the body should not be displaced before all evidence documentation is completed. All the witnesses involved are detained. To maintain objectivity, it is advised to keep them separate from each other. Many suspects have the innate urge to return to the CS once the crime has been committed. From the witnesses' accounts, if the suspect is still present at the CS, the FROs attempt to search for and apprehend the suspect. This is followed by securing the CS. However, securing can be initiated as soon as possible if there is no scarcity of staff. This can be done with the help of physical barriers that would prevent other unauthorized people from entering the scene. These could be barricading tape, traffic cones, containers, or even other vehicles. After establishing such barriers, an officer is designated as the scene security officer. They maintain a log of everyone entering and exiting the scene. Simply curious onlookers, detectives, police officers, media, and others should not be allowed at the CS at all. Care should be taken that none of the personnel eats, drinks, or smokes at the CS. As these officers are not formally trained in CSI, their actions depend more on their experience at such scenes. Thus, according to their experience, they should note everything that distinguishes the CS from others. There is a class of evidence known as transient evidence, which degrades in a short time and cannot be documented in the later stages. Examples of this evidence include peculiar odors, temperature, and impressions on perishable items. An odor of gasoline may be gone when the investigators arrive. It is the job of the FRO to note and communicate it to the investigator. If an FRO notes that the smell of gasoline is prominent at the CS, it gets easier for the investigators to search for the linked evidence accordingly. Seemingly insignificant details, such as the initial position of doors, windows, light switches, furniture, etc., must also be noted. Along with this, the FRO notes all the movements and alterations made at the CS. It is not uncommon to find people at the CS attempting to clean it up. They must be interrogated thoroughly to gather information regarding the conditions prior to the cleanup. If anyone from the staff unwillingly leaves behind a fingerprint or footwear print, the personnel must not try to remove it. The FRO should just document the contamination and share it with the investigating team. Thus, a CS is termed as secure when only authorized personnel are allowed to enter the scene, at which point proper entry and exit, as well as contamination logs, are maintained. The FRO's duties are over when the investigating team arrives. However, they must stay at the CS until the investigation gets completed. The FRO assists the investigators in the initial walkthrough to evaluate the protected areas and secure other areas if necessary. The lead investigator benefits immensely from the walkthrough, as it helps them in getting a second-hand account of the CS as observed by the FRO. This description along the walkthrough helps them in formulating a reconstruction theory regarding how the event must have transpired. All possible points of entry and exits, as well as the paths of travel missed by the FRO, must be secured. The investigator has to be painstakingly careful and vigilant at this stage and protect the scene accordingly. There have been many cases where evidence that seems unimportant at first gains importance in the later stages of the investigation. If such evidence is destroyed or contaminated because the scene was unsecured, then the investigation gets jeopardized. Therefore, the investigator must keep an open mind. After the assessment of the CS, the investigator roughly calculates the manpower and logistics required in later stages of investigation. They then communicate to the senior officials this estimate for the number of personnel, equipment required, and precautions needed. The second stage of CSI is recognition of the evidence. This precedes actual searching and collection of evidence. Recognizing evidence is one of the hardest steps to perform, as the investigator has to take great care not to miss any important evidence. At the same time, they should also discard materials irrelevant to the CS. As we've already seen, some evidence might gain importance in the later stages of CSI. Therefore, the grounds on which to distinguish a piece of evidence as important or unimportant are very ambiguous. Like the other stages, there are no hard and fast rules in this stage. As a result, recognition primarily depends on the investigator's own experience. There is no need to rush unless some rapidly perishable evidence is involved. A mental reconstruction of the events that may have occurred helps immensely for recognizing evidence linked to the crime. For example, if this is a scene concerning murder by a firearm, then cartridges, bullets, gunshot residue, blood stains, fingerprints, footwear prints at entry and exit can all be considered crucial evidence. Once this evidence is recognized, the investigators move on to searching for and later collecting them. However, evidence that is important for one crime scene may be insignificant in others. Therefore, extreme foresight is needed on the part of the investigator. This foresight extends into laboratory investigation as well. If the right questions are posed in the laboratory, the most useful answers will arrive. If a scientist is made aware of the facts of the case, they will analyze the evidence more appropriately than just another routine request for analysis. To achieve this, proper documentation of the evidence and their communication to the laboratory are required. The third stage of CSI is searching for the evidence that is recognized in the previous stage. Searching for and collection of evidence are often known as the backbone of CSI. The primary objective of searching is to establish linkage between the perpetrator, victim, and the CS, and answer significant questions such as: who committed the crime? How was the crime committed? Why was the crime committed? Which circumstances led to the commission of the crime? During recognition of evidence, there is a chance that some evidence might go unrecognized. However, while undertaking a CS search, reconstructing the scene mentally as evidence is being discovered may indicate that some items are missing. These items are sought after. Statements from the witnesses, notes taken by the FRO and the lead investigator, preliminary medical reports, these all contribute to the ongoing search. Here, it is important to search only for what is sought. If any other insignificant substances are searched for, it may turn out to be a waste of time. Actual important evidence might get lost, contaminated, or destroyed in the process. This is where we realize how important it is to recognize evidence in the first place. Therefore, it is paramount for the lead investigator to brief each searcher on exactly what to do, and most importantly, what not to do. When a piece of evidence is obtained during the search, it may be tempting for the searcher to touch, handle, or move it. However, such actions must be strictly prohibited. Searchers must only mark and designate evidence for further stages without touching it. CS searches are usually carried out by a small number of knowledgeable and skilled personnel. With the number of searchers being less significant, the investigator must decide on the search pattern to be used at the particular CS. No single method is specific for a CS, and an experienced investigator will be able to adopt a search pattern most suitable for the CS. Commonly used search methods are line or strip, grid, zone, wheel or ray, spiral, and link. Each one has its own set of pros and cons. The actual search can also be a combination of these different patterns. Let's learn about each one of them in detail. The first method of search is the line or strip method. The CS is divided into parallel rectangles, and the searchers look for clues by walking in a straight line. As soon as a piece of evidence is located, they inform the search coordinator. After one rectangle is completed, they move on to the next, and so on until the whole scene is covered. This method works best outdoors. The second method of search is the grid method. This is similar to the line method, the only difference being that the horizontal and vertical line searches overlap each other, resembling a grid. This type of search is very effective, as evidence missed in the vertical line search might get discovered in the horizontal. Different searchers will have a different perspective to look at the CS, thus leading to the detection of previously unnoticed evidence. However, the grid method is very time-consuming, which can lead to decay and contamination of perishable clues. The third method of search is the quadrant or zone method. Here, the CS is divided into different quadrants or zones, and a different team of searchers is assigned to each section. The individual zones can also be further divided into lines or a grid to make the search easier. This method is usually employed for an indoors CS. A house or a factory can be effectively divided into zones according to the rooms and compartments. Therefore, this is the preferred method in the case of search warrants. The fourth method of search is the wheel or ray method. Here, the searchers start their search from the center of the crime scene and continue along the radii. They can repeat this search as many times as required. This method has limited applications and is typically used for small and circular crime scenes. The fifth method of search is the spiral method. Often used for a large outdoor CS, it can be classified as either an inward spiral or an outward spiral. In the case of a CS with no physical barriers, an outward spiral method is used. Here, the searchers start from the center of the CS and move along a spiral outwards until no more significant clues are found. When the CS is large but within certain limits, the inward spiral is used. In this case, the search is started from a point just outside the CS, which is continued in an inward spiral until the searchers reach the center of the CS. This method ensures maximum coverage of the CS. It can also be used for searching a special CS, such as a search involving a drowning case in a lake. The sixth and last method of search is the link method. Like the others, this does not refer to any geometrical shape. It is based on the linkage theory, where finding one piece of evidence leads to the search for another. As a result, the logic, reasoning, and experience of the investigator play an important role here. This method works for all types of CS and can be used in combination with any of the previous search patterns. If the investigator does not find something which they feel should be logically present, they should look for it more thoroughly. At a CS, nothing is insignificant. The tiniest piece of evidence must catch the attention of the searchers. The investigator must guarantee that the searchers are wearing enough protective gear from head to toe. This serves two purposes: to secure the CS from contamination, as well as to ensure that the staff don't get affected by toxic and biological evidence present at the CS. As evidence is discovered along with the search, they are marked with different tags according to a letter or a number series. In the next tutorial, we will learn how this marked evidence gets documented using different methods.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel for more tutorials. Support me on Patreon so I can keep making content. And as always, feel free to email me, ProfessorDaveExplains@gmail.com.